If you grew up during the 80s and have no idea who the Masters of the Universe are, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you didn't grow up cool. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe burst onto our screens in the 80s, and ever since they've been delivering hit after hit through comic books, films, and shows. This world, where sword and sorcery meets science fiction, is getting another retelling through Dark Horse Comics' Masters of the Universe Genesis. This 12-issue comic book series has already dropped the first issue, which was written by Rich Douek, known for Drive Like Hell and Road of Bones, and illustrated by Gavin Smith, whose work you can find in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Star Trek: The Mirror War, and it's colored by Fabi Marques, the artist behind Snow's End and Hour of the Wolf. This all-star trio is only working on the first story arc, which will span 3 issues, but from what I can tell after reading this first issue, this beginning arc will give Skeletor a brand new origin story. So let's dive right on in and find out how Skeletor ended up in Eternia and how Mer-Man and Beast Man became his lackeys. It all started on the shore where the Crystal Sea met the Vine Jungle. The Vine Jungle housed the brutish humanoids known as the Beast Men, while the Crystal Sea was home to the amphibian bipeds called mermen. On the very first day, when the mermen left their underwater abode to explore the world outside, they met the Beast Men. The two tribes actually had a lot in common, as they had both lived in and mastered some of the harshest environments on the planet of Eternia, but they despised each other from the moment they first laid eyes on each other. A battle began on the shore and raged on. Even after centuries of this brutal war, the hatred has not diminished, and the two tribes still fight each other, the Beast Men armed with iron and steel weapons, and the mermen holding weapons forged out of gold. It became a well-known fact that if a merman chieftain had to prove himself, all he had to do was raid the heartlands of the brutish beasts, and for a Beastman champion to prove himself, he needed to drive the fish people back to their homes. So every day, the mermen and the beastmen shed blood, screamed battle cries, and yearned for a day when they were declared victorious. On one of those days, which started like any other, a brilliant red flash appeared, and the silhouette of a man with a skull for a face walked out of it. Skeletor looked ghoulish to say the least, as he held his staff, mounted with a ram's head, and a glowing red orb strapped to his chest. He ordered the two tribes to stop their foolish battle and promised glory if they had the strength to seize it. The two tribes didn't stop fighting, as they were overtaken by surprise at this sudden intrusion. Skeletor continued his monologue, condemning the two tribes for fighting petty battles on the shore with weapons forged from human greed, while the city of Operon was growing fatter and wealthier by capitalizing on their bloodlust. So Skeletor offered them a chance to tread Operon beneath their feet and eventually Eternia if they made the choice to battle together under his leadership. He promised to make them Masters of the Universe. The leader of the Beastmen was the first to speak up. He refused to let his allegiance be bought by a mere silver tongue and tricks of sorcery. He threatened to flay what remained of Skeletor's skin and wear it as a cloak. The chieftain of the mermen joined in on the threats, wishing for a throne made of Skeletor's bones. And for the first time in centuries, the mermen and the beastmen agreed to something as they charged at Skeletor. Skeletor might have been outnumbered, but he was never outpowered. He used his staff to bend the leader and the chieftain to their knees. As they writhed in pain, Skeletor told them that if they could fight alongside each other, they could also kneel before him together. He let them know that only Skeletor could free the barbaric planet from their weak kings who were incapable of bringing order, and he would do whatever it took to rule. He gave them 2 choices. Either kneel before him and agree to serve him, or be ground to dust beneath his boots. Unable to withstand the pain of Skeletor's magic any longer, the leader and the chieftain yielded. With the 2 tribes serving him, Skeletor took them to a cave, warmed by a lit fire, and let them know about his plans and his history. Eternia used to be a great planet, the seat of immense power, whose wondrous tales would reach even the ears of people in different worlds. But, as was predictable, Eternia grew soft with power and ripe for conquest. Though many tyrants wanted to lay claim to Eternia, the Great Wars destroyed their hopes as Eternia was reduced to a savage land. Skeletor had a plan to restore Eternia to its former glory, but to do that, he needed to seize control of it. The leader of the Beastmen was confused as to why Operon was important to the plan, but Skeletor refused to divulge that information. The power of Eternia was in Castle Grayskull, but Skeletor had his reasons for attacking Operon. Though he didn't reveal what those reasons were, he told them that it would become clear as day when the king of Operon, Thales, was at his feet and his house was in utter ruin. The merman chieftain was the next to speak up, asking how Skeletor would conquer an entire world. He also tried to introduce himself, but Skeletor shut him down, not worried about learning his name, as he was content calling him Mer-Man. For Skeletor, conquering an entire world was easy, as he had already done it once before. You see, Skeletor used to be a part of the Horde. He served Hordak, who in turn served their ruler, Horde Prime. Etheria was a great world, one whose glory was dimmed by petty infighting. It was weak, decaying, and doomed, but the Horde had made up its mind to set things right. Under Skeletor's command, the Horde conquered Etheria. As he had done 100 times before for the Horde, Skeletor brought the kings of Etheria to their knees. Unfortunately, it was never for his glory. The glory for the battles Skeletor won would always be taken by Hordak. It was Hordak's statue that was erected in the ruins of Etheria. While others saw in him a great leader, Skeletor thought he was a self-aggrandizing fool who was incapable of commanding a battalion of garbage pickers. Skeletor's efforts in dismantling their enemies' armies and turning their kings into slaves was never acknowledged by Horde Prime because Hordak always made sure he was the one who got all the attention. Day after day, Hordak reaped the glory of their victories, and Skeletor only got indignity after indignity in return for his service. Finally, there came a day when Skeletor had had enough. Mer-Man, unable to control his curiosity, chimed in and asked whether Skeletor slew Hordak and took control of the Horde. If he did that, Mer-Man wanted to know why he needed them. Skeletor, a bit sheepishly, admitted that he never said he slew him, although he could have. Mer-Man demanded to know why, and Skeletor continued his tale. One day, Hordak had held a ceremony of sorts where Skeletor would need to kneel in front of him and accept a medal of honor. Skeletor didn't see kneeling before Hordak as an honor. He thought the ceremony was yet another ploy for Hordak to massage his massive ego and flaunt his own strength. Despite that, Skeletor kneeled to show every single member of the Horde the vastness of Hordak's strength, but as he knelt, a powerful red spark went off from his staff, and Hordak's statue was replaced with a statue of Skeletor. Hordak was befuddled. He was shocked and angered at Skeletor's display. The look on his face, though, was Skeletor's favorite memory. As Hordak lunged at him, Skeletor knew what to expect and was ready to face him. He drew his sword and held his staff in preparation. As the two strongest warriors of the Horde fought each other, the planet shook in fear, and the skies waited in terror. One swing after another, their battle continued until Skeletor's blade found Hordak's face, giving him an ugly scar on his cheek. Victory was so close, Skeletor could taste it, and it was in no way surprising to him, as he believed he was the better warrior and sorcerer of the two. His belief proved true when his sword pierced Hordak's body and he fell, clutching his side in pain. Hordak, however, had one advantage over Skeletor: deceitful tricks. A ball of energy hit Skeletor, and he could feel it tearing him apart. With his last breath, he cursed at Hordak, but then he realized it wasn't his last breath at all. The ball of energy hadn't killed him, but transported him away from Etheria and onto Eternia, right in front of Snake Mountain. That day, Skeletor vowed to take his revenge on Hordak and every single being who wielded power they were unworthy of. Now, he wanted to show Operon his might and power and burn it to the ground. As Skeletor delivered his rousing speech, his staff sent out red lightning bolts, which were visible from the balcony of Castle Grayskull. The sorceress watched with curious concern. Skeletor told his new minions that the fire of Operon would lead the way to Grayskull. Mer-Man, however, was concerned about how they would conquer Castle Grayskull, as it lay in the domain of Eternos Palace, ruled by King Randor, who had a lot of alliances and was capable of defending himself. Skeletor brushed his concerns away, assuring him that Eternos Palace had no champion or strength, only weaklings. He claimed that he had seen their future and were given a glimpse of what Skeletor saw. Orko entertaining Cringer and Prince Adam with one of his magic tricks, Cringer cringing as usual, and Adam settled comfortably with a large mug of alcohol, laughing heartily. Skeletor declared that the future of Eternos would end with his hands around their throats. I gotta say, I love this story so far. In this version, it turns out Beast Man and Mer-Man have names, but we don't get to know them because Skeletor doesn't care enough. It's also so typical of Skeletor to describe Hordak banishing him as Hordak having deceitful tricks up his sleeve. I mean, come on, you're Skeletor, you're the king of deceitful tricks. To be fair, we're a little biased here. Skeletor is one of my favorite characters in the Masters of the Universe franchise, and I think Genesis is doing him justice. The art is extremely on point as well. It's bright, captivating, and well done. That said, I didn't love the character design for Beast Man, who looked more man than beast. I prefer the original Filmation design where he looks more like a cross between a man and an ape. Mer-Man, however, looks pretty snazzy in this comic book, and if he's the king of his people, it only makes sense that he's dressed in the best his people have to offer. I can't wait for the next issue to drop, and I'm sure we're going to find out why Skeletor has set his sights on Operon. If we're guessing, I think maybe Operon's King Thales is either Triclops or Trapjaw, and Skeletor wants to defeat defeat them to force them into his ranks. But that's just pure conjecture. What about you? Do you have any guesses as to what Operon holds? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, because that's the best way to get more videos like this delivered right to your feed. We'll be back soon with more awesome comic book explorations, but until then, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.